Let us start the session. I welcome you to the fourth session of this 5 days Atal sponsors online FDP on AI and ML. For this session, we have with us Professor P. Radhakrishna sir, who is currently a professor and head of department of computer science and engineering at NIT Warangal. His research interest includes data mining, big data, machine learning, and database of workflow systems. Prior to joining NIT Warangal, he served as a principal research scientist at Infosys Hyderabad, where he was associated with research projects leading to futuristic intelligence systems and analytical solutions. Sir has also served as a faculty at Institute for Development and Research in Banking Technology, that is IDRBT, which is a research arm of Reserve Bank of India. And he also served as a scientist at National Informatics Center, Government of India. He was also a member of IT Advisory Committee, Insurance Regulatory and Development Authority, India. To his credit, Sir has double PhDs. The first one from Osmania University and the second from IIIT Hyderabad. And he has around 20, almost 20 granted patents, authored in around almost 60 books and numerous international journal papers. He is also a tutorial speaker at several international conferences. Today we are fortunate enough that Sir has accepted our invitation within a very short span of time, and he has agreed to deliver a talk on deep learning and its applications. So, sir, on behalf of Department of Production Engineering, VSSUT Burla, Odisha, all the participants of this 5 days online FDP, I welcome you to this session and request you to kindly start the session. Please, sir.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for inviting me for this program. It is a very honor for me to be part of this FDP program. Good afternoon, good morning to all of you. Let me share my screen. Can anyone please confirm that I am audible and then my screen is visible?
Yes, sir, it is perfect.
Okay.
And also you are audible.
Good, great. Okay. Yeah. Once again, good morning to all of you. And I try to look into the deep learning aspects. Some of you already have gone through the kind of a AI, how the AI is actually transformed to the today's learning aspects. So I'll touch upon on these aspects, and then at the end, some of the few of the applications, which are the real life applications, I'll try to cover. Please stop me whenever you have any questions out there. So this I'll start with a good cartoon, because today we are all interested in developing a good amount of applications, and which are more practical and real world applications. Right? So I took this from kdnagesh.com, because many of the sources with respect to this advanced topics they try to cover, including the conferences organizing data sets which are providing. So they give a lot of information. So I took this cartoon from there. And here there is a couple who went for a dinner, and they asked the waiter. So waiter comes and says, "You just smile our AI will take a picture of your face and will know exactly what you would like for dinner tonight. So that means you don't require to order anything. You just have to smile and he will take a picture. And the system automatically tells, that AI system will automatically provide information that on what are your interests, what are your taste, whether what is that you have taken in the lunch, dinner. They know already the things, everything. And based on that, they know how much quantity and what are the items that you are likely to order. Okay. So that is the kind of a systems that today we are having. Of course, all of us know that we are using Google Maps whenever we want to move from a particular source to destination. And whenever we are using Google Maps, we have to blindly follow what Google Map shows, right? Many times. And sometimes it may happen that we go to the route which may not be a proper way. Maybe that may not be updated, or maybe something was not happened. Even in my case, once it happened, there's one of the shop which I went earlier. After 2 years when I went, the shop moved, but they didn't update it. But the Google Maps had taken me 2 times. I tried to search that one to make that one. There's no office. That office doesn't exist there, and it is going to like an empty land. That means whether we like it or don't like, we have to be we have to follow the systems what it provides. So, and of course, in this case, suppose if you, sometimes there is a possibility that when we may get a food which you not like it, right? So it's very hard to hard to understand why this kind of a food was served. So whether irrespective of whether we like it or don't like, so we have to be with the AI itself, because the AI is being used to make decisions about our life, whether like it or not. So today is a part and parcel of our life. And many of the AI today, it talks about the deep learning. And irrespective of what kind of a technology we are using, the main idea is we want to solve the problems. Suppose if you look at the oil and gas sector, suppose if you want to dig a new well, how you want to determine what are the places that you want to be dig, right? So now there's a lot of work is happening in the manufacturing sector, where people used to call, can I go for a predictive maintenance? Many of us know the preventive maintenance, right? So usually people will talk preventive maintenance, but today they're talking about predictive maintenance, right? So like that, there are n number of applications are there in each and every sector. And the idea is, given a problem, can we provide a solution to that? The basic thing is we need to understand the problem well. Then only we can know whether we can provide a simple solution or it could be like a complex solution. So problem sometimes appears to be simple, but you may have a solution could be complex. And problem could appear as a complex, but you can have a simple solution. So all these things are possible. And if you look at it, a simple example is, if at all, if I want to have a star rocket launching. So this is one of the US university got this project. They're asking to find the trajectory of the multiple rockets, because star rocket launch means multiple rockets launched at the same time. They want to find the trajectory of each and every. Okay. Now, in this case here, it is a mission critical application. Okay? That means the problem appears to be complex, but the researchers actually finally they come out, they say a simple linear regression is very good. We all know from the 10th standard itself, the y equal mx plus c, right? We can fit a line in the linear regression. Now we are trying to find a curve, but we are saying this is a line. Of course, when we have points are very close to each other, then even a connected line can be transformed as a trajectory, a curve, right? So that's why whenever given some problem, it is always good to start with whether any simple solution is well and good or not, because it's not only the kind of accuracy that you are determining the trajectory, but it's also important at what time we are providing that information. Suppose if I, instead of linear regression, if I go for a high-end technology, suppose if they take, it may take some 2 seconds time to find the trajectory. By the time the rocket might be launched and reach it to its own orbit. So if it's the linear regression, like it's a calculation will be simple and then it will be faster, right? So we need to look about the kind of a opportunity that we can deploy, because it's not only just to find a research paper, but it's also important to find a, can we deploy this into a practical solution or not? So that's why we can say all these possible combinations are there. We need to understand the problem and we need to understand we can develop the solution based on that. Of course, data is also more important. Most of the applications in the AI to deep learning is based on the data. So if you look at this machine intelligence, the early days, the computers are used for automating the business processes. So there's a business process was there, they're used to automate. That is the primary job of the computers. Now we are talking about the other extreme. Can I take the decision-making capability? Can I use the decision-making capability when the business process is executing it? That's why AI-based systems. AI-based systems means it's supposed to provide the decision-making capability. Early days I actually started the AI, artificial intelligence. During that time, the basic idea is, can machines have the capability of thinking? So that's what the idea, right? At the time of people are kind AI, the word AI, of course, in 1960s, the early 60s, machine thinks. Today, things also thinking, not only machines, the things also thinking, like IoT, Internet of Things. So your sensor associated with a particular component can be useful to identify the health of that component. Today, if you go to any of the sectors, suppose if you have a healthcare sector, the several components, or maybe you have the manufacturing sector, retail sector, the sensors associated with each and every component, by analyzing the sensor data, you can know the health of the component, right? That means even things also with thinking. Say they say smart factories, smart home, smart cities, maybe smart car, even refrigerator. So everything, whatever that we call the physical objects, are in the position are in the capable of having the thinking capability. So this AI, actually, people have started about the machine learning also, and in this AI, people are mainly talking about the rule-based systems. That means, somebody can give me a rules so that I can able to develop a intelligent system. But when it comes to the machine learning, people wants to do, can I automate these rules? Given a such of data, can I generate these rules automatically from the data, from the historical data? That means they want to learn, the machines can learn from the given data in the form of a rules. It could be like a rules, patterns, or sometimes they call it insights also. And this machine learning and pattern recognition became very popular nowadays. And then data mining, actually, they got a business applications. It could be like a customer relationship management, could be HR, or even it could be the fraud detection. Right? Or maybe suppose you want to say abnormal behavior of a system. So many of these tasks or the business tasks can be handled using data mining techniques. Then people talking about most of the activities to be taken care by the systems itself, like a robotics, where the hardware side, like we have humanoid robotics, and in a software side we have a soft bots. Soft bots are nothing but like agents, are nothing but a soft bots, where they can take some of the activities, like as we use some agents normally in some of the tasks, if we want to perform, we'll approach the agents. Similarly here, the agents are specialized in a specific task. So that means these agents are actually collaborate with the other agents, like they call it multi-agent systems, other agents, and then interact each other and try to solve a problem. Then people are looking at the autonomous systems. So autonomous systems, when the Google actually started a driverless car, and then a lot of metros there are actually without a driver, also without the person, they can run from one terminal to another terminal, mostly in the airports. And even if you're looking for a cloud, the cloud service provider handles all the requests from the users without any human involvement. So people have started about the autonomous systems which can be self-configurable, self-learning systems. So these people are developing this such kind of systems. Now people are calling deep learning. The idea is here, when we talk about the AI, people are talking about the rule-based systems. When they talk about machine learning, the rules are generated automatically, but still somebody has to give what are its features. Features means the attributes. So those features has to be identified. Features needs to be identified. In case if any particular feature is missing, if any particular feature missing, the outcome is also may not be appropriate, right? So now the domain the machine learning expert has to choose the correct features, and machine learning expert may not be having a familiarity with all the kind of a business things. So business expert also supposed to provide, okay, consider these are the features. So the feature engineering is one of the major tasks in the machine learning. But when it comes to the deep learning, the feature engineering will become the part and parcel of the deep learning techniques. So earlier, if I want to analyze a particular image, I want to identify the objects in the image. Suppose the objects were there, objects to identify. So first I have to convert this image into features, maybe color features, texture features. Like that, I have to extract the features from this image and then provide to an algorithm so that I can get able to detect the objects. I can train the model. But nowadays in the deep learning, we don't require to identify these features. You can straight away you can give this image to a deep learning system, a deep learning technology algorithm. So it automatically does everything. So it could be like an image, it could be text, everything. So the deep learning actually evolved to solve a lot of problems in the natural language processing and computer vision, NLP and CV, because many of the text processing things, many of the image processing things, which required, one of the aspects is required the features. And when the data is a structured format means we know the rows and columns, the column names, we know it. We say machine learning is very good because features can be easily known to that one. Because only thing is here you are having a F1, F2, F3, Fn. You need to choose which are the features are useful to you, useful to solve the problem. But now in the natural language processing, we have a huge number of documents, or maybe huge number of images, videos. Right? So in this one, is it possible to know all the features that are coming out? Maybe here is a color or texture, maybe some feature, other feature which is missing, we do not know. Right? So let us, why not we can give it to the system itself to learn that. So now this deep learning is taking this feature engineering part is implicit. Feature engineering is implicit of this one. And the other side of the deep learning is the data to be processed faster, because when we say NLP or computer vision, here we are talking about the words like text, or maybe pixels information. And processing these takes a lot of time. Then last few years, people are trying to make, can I compute this faster by representing this data into another format. So into most of the formats are like vector format. So then people have started, can I have a word to vector? Or maybe sentence to vector. Now everything is like a vector, right? Speech to vector, image to vector. So like that, now everything they are converting into representing the data in the form of a vectors. Because vector computation is much faster than the character-based computations. And when I'm not talking about like a small data sets, when we're talking about like a web documents, millions of the documents. If we take the Facebook data, millions of the posts, right? So that is huge data when we're taking is really matter how we can represent the data. So the deep learning also brings the representation learning. So this is called, this vector representation is called embeddings. So that everything that we are looking at embeddings nowadays. So today, if you take any data and ask it to apply some kind of a machine learning or deep learning algorithms, people are to first they will convert into the vector format. Once they convert into vector format, then you can apply some of the deep learning algorithms. So this deep learning brings both feature engineering and representation learning as part of the algorithmic techniques. Of course, people are nowadays calling data science also. Data science actually encompasses all the things. But it also talks about data science, a value addition to the businesses. So because when the people are started with the data, because earlier rules means the domain rules. Simultaneously, people are looking at the importance of the data. Once they started importance of the data, they're capturing huge amount of the data. And the data is going to big data scale. Many of you are aware of this word big data. They talk about volume, velocity, variety, value, veracity. So many V's were there to characterize the big data. So to address the challenges involved in the big data, people have started working in this area like a data science. So the idea is you can apply whatever the technique that you are looking for, you can apply it. But at the end, you have to tell there is a value addition to the business. Then only one can call it as a data science. That means, suppose, can you tell that one, if at all an organization implements X, Y, Z, then they can get 20% of the revenue in the next quarter, more revenue in the next quarter. So that is the kind of a thing you have to tell. We cannot say, okay, I have a lot number of patterns are there. Whatever that you want, you can use it. No, you can tell this system supposed to tell, okay, do this X, Y, Z and provide, if you do this X, Y, Z task, then you can get a 20% revenue in the next quarter. That is where the actually data science is coming to picture. And as technology is evolving, people are talking about nature-inspired computing, right? Quantum-inspired computing, many new areas to incorporate the knowledge into the systems they started. So that's what you can say. We say machines thinking. That's what, though in 1960s it was given, but people are today also trying to incorporate as much as knowledge into the systems. So out of all the things, the main important thing is the data, because we are in the data-driven world. And in the data-driven world, data sense is more important. Because though we say in the deep learning algorithms, I use deep learning, but at the end, what is the benefit that you got it? Can you sense the data or not? So when I say data sense the data, that means I can understand my data. I have a huge amount of the data. I'm trying to understand my data using one or more techniques of these things and see that, okay, these are the patterns are useful for my future business. So that's why I always say that one, can we sense the data or not? If you've done the data sense, if you can identify the data or the patterns, that means our job is over. For that, either you can use a simple Excel sheet, because today Excel is also having a lot of functionalities. Or you can take a high-end deep learning models. Whatever you do, at the end, if you can say, I am able to understand my data for my business purpose, that's fine. The overall idea is to incorporate the cognitive reasoning into the machines. Usually humans are actually having the cognitive reasoning, because we always tell that, okay, we are can have this kind of thinking process. But now the machines can be provided with the cognitive reasoning, so that they can perform almost like mimic the humans, right? So that's what actually the goal is coming up. So to understand this one is better, we can look at in the classical AI systems, the rules are framed by the humans. And in the classical machine learning, the rules are learned automatically, but the feature extraction is manual. Now, if you go to the representation learning or deep learning, we are actually taking the decision. The learning is also be automatic, the rules learning, and features also learned automatically. But today, there's a lot of things are happening in the deep learning scenario, where can I suppose if I already developed my deep learning things in one domain, suppose assume that you are developed in the banking domain, you've done a lot of learning from these things. Now, if you want to move to another domain, like you are taking another problem, like insurance domain, can I use the knowledge, whatever that I developed here, can I use it here? Mostly this NLP and computer vision point of view, because maybe a lot of policy documents are there in here English, here also English, maybe some domain specific words will be there difference. So now people are talking about, can I have a pre-trained models? Can I have a pre-trained models? So that means I have a pre-trained model which I can use directly. I can develop it for this one, and I can also do for the insurance sector. Maybe this pre-trained models need to be fine-tuned with respect to this domain, whatever I'm working it out. So today, this is called a transfer learning. So whatever that your knowledge that you learned here, can I transfer it here? The transfer learning. So this transfer learning, this concept, they are now introduced, and many of the research papers you can look at the transformers. This is the latest technologies people are trying out to develop transformers or use the transformers, like a BERT, GP3, GPT-3. So all the things are the transformers. So now it will become, the solutions are becoming very simple to develop these aspects. So the basic idea here is, instead of learning the features, can you learn the abstract features, the pre-trained model abstract features, so that they can be easily tuned towards to the current domain where you are applying, and can try to develop a solution for that. So this is actually what is happening, a journey from traditional rules which are framed by humans, but here everything is coming by automatically from the system. So today we have to know these transformers. You have to identify which are the pre-trained model I can use it, and then start working on that. So then another aspect people are also looking at, if you are looking for more technical things, one has to know what are the objectives of learning also. So is there data complexity or model complexity, or maybe some kind of a optimization parameters that you are using? So these things like a data space plane, model selection plane, a control plane. So people will talk about it once we have a clear idea about this, why we need to do this learning. it will be more easy to understand these techniques. You take either AI, ML, or whatever DL, deep learning. The primary aspect of it is, can I distinguish each and every data point with respect to others? That means, can I say this the particular data point was given here, suppose. Can you say this belongs to this class or this class? Right? If you can able to tell that, that means that is your objective was met. Can I distinguish or discriminate each and every object that is given to me? So sometimes what will happen, even a simple example, if suppose if there's on a road, suppose if I want to be looking at the vehicles, I want to see all the vehicles on the road. If in the two plane, suppose the two-dimensional plane, what will happen? I can only see the data, the vehicles which are there on the road which is before me, but I cannot see the farther because this will be obstructed the vehicles. But if you go to a nearby building, go to top of the building and see the road, you can see each and every vehicle. That means what I have done, I am going a third dimension. I can visualize these things. If not possible, I can go to fourth dimension, fifth dimension, and nth dimension. Okay? So till I can distinguish, so maybe I cannot distinguish here. I cannot make a separate these two. Maybe I can separate higher planes. So that's what we need to look at. Can I able to discriminate or distinguish each and every point in the data space? So that's why people usually call a supervised and unsupervised learning aspects to develop these things. And when you say model selection, also very important. Whether you can go a simple linear model, or can you go to a quadratic model or cubic model? Because if you want to be making more and more sophisticated, you can go to higher algorithms. And similarly, when you want to be select a model on a particular data set for a given problem, then you have to see whether I have to go for a mean squared error, perception loss, or maybe some other thing. Even deep learning people used to go for cross entropy loss measure. So many of those such measures can be used for this purpose. So now this way the deep learning is, now we can tell they almost reach to a human performance level, particularly analyzing the language understanding and image analysis. Language analysis means natural language understanding, and also the image analysis part. And today many of the applications, real world applications are there. Suppose if you are taking a picture, your camera, your smartphone automatically identifies the faces, right? So that's why you can say object recognition in the cameras. You can ask the Google Assistant saying that one, so can you transfer money? The Google Assistant directly says, hi Google, right? You can use the virtual assistants. Of course, Apple was started with the Siri. Nowadays, Google is having a Google Assistant. Many of the almost everybody is providing today the virtual assistants. So autonomous cars, photo tagging systems, chatbots, they are now reality. Okay? So that means that many of the real world applications can be solved using this deep learning. So this deep learning for NLP, there are many of applications. Most famous is like a Q&A, question and answer system. Suppose you can ask a query and you can get a response. And because normally organizations are having a huge amount of the data. Data could be some data in the structured format, something in the document format, something in the image format. But suppose if you can give a query on this, can you get the answer? A simple example in the banking could be, suppose you can ask why your EMI was changed from last year, why it was increased. Maybe there are so many terms are there we may not be read while doing this one, right? Either or it may be done by mistake. We do not know. Now you are asking a query, can you get a response? If a human being wants to do, whether how many people can be solved for suppose if you have a millions of the customers, then how to solve the millions, at least 1,000 customers are asking, suppose, are approaching you with the different questions. So can I make a chatbot kind of a facility where I can answer automatically from the data. If not possible by by chatbot, then only it will go to for a human assistance to get the data. Like the Q&A systems, chatbots, virtual assistants, a lot of recommendation systems today are following this one. And most of the aspects also go in the text summarization, because many places the summarized things are very good, very important. A simple example could be, suppose some of you are very fan of watching cricket match. Suppose, can you tell that on giving a complete video of a cricket match, can you automatically come out with the highlights? Highlights means when maybe somebody was bowled, or somebody has hit the six, or somebody four. Those are the highlights, correct? The important moments. So can you identify those things coming from a given video? So that is the summarized form of the maybe entire video, correct? So like that, you can have many of the tasks can be done using the summarization aspects. Similarly, you can have a lot of video applications also. But all this, there are a lot of challenges with this image or text. They are actually high dimensional, because the dimensionality is more, that in the number of features extremely large, and sometimes the data sets are unbalanced data sets, and the data could be completely unstructured. So to handle these kind of a challenges, both in the language understanding as well as the image applications, nowadays people are going for this deep learning aspects. So now in the deep learning, the core is the learning, right? So people will call like a supervised learning, there's an unsupervised learning, and today some of the solutions are based on the reinforcement learning, or maybe the self-learning aspects. So there are a variety of the learning paradigms are there nowadays, including the deep learning. But here the basic idea is, are you developing the model with some kind of a guidance, or based on the data, within the data itself? If there's a guidance is there, then we can call it a supervised learning. If there's no guidance, just you are giving the data, from the data itself you are learning, we call unsupervised learning. But if you are getting some output and taking some kind of feedback and then handling it, then we can call it a reinforcement learning. Because if you say the outcome is good, you can give a reward. If outcome is bad, you can give a penalty. So that kind of importance you can give to update your model. Self-organization means is like it can be configurable automatically, self-configurable self-learning systems. And a deep learning actually started with the aspect of artificial neural networks, and then representation learning is a part of that. So what deep learning tries is, it tries to find the good representations automatically from data without any handcrafted feature engineering. So that is the benefit of having the deep learning techniques, because you don't require to extract these features manually. So it will be done automatically by these things. So at a very high level, we can say machine learning having both the feature extraction and classification together. They have two different things, but both are combined in the deep learning things. Now we'll come to this one, why we require a hierarchy of multiple layers. Now, whenever we call it deep learning, it mainly started with the neural networks. And in the basic neural network, we have the input nodes, we have output nodes, and there's a hidden nodes. And many times we think that neural networks are more complex, but you can easily understand by looking at the diagram. It is nothing but a set of mathematical equations. Simple thing. Suppose if I want this F0, this is the output unit. Y is the output unit. Now, can I say how I can make Y? Maybe I can say a W1 into H1, because H1 is a node. This is a weight. That's what with this one. Plus W2 into H2 plus W3 into H3. Then what is the H1? H1 could be the W11 into X1 plus W12 into X2 plus W16, right? So that means I can able to have a set of equations. This one. Though people usually tell neural networks are more complex, but it's not like that. So this X1 is connected to all the hidden nodes. Suppose there are 3 hidden nodes are there. Is it connected this one, right? So this F0 is connected with all these 3. So this is like a fully connected layer, right? We are saying fully connected things. Now let us go to what exactly this means. This hidden node, this H1, suppose it could be a unity function, that is, suppose if it's a 1. So whatever comes here, it may go to this one, right? This is called activation function. Normally, this activation function could be a sigmoid function, that they commonly use the sigmoid function, or it could be like a ReLU or any other function also. So each hidden unit and output unit have a transfer function to convert the sum of the inputs into an output. That means we are trying to write a transfer function, some function of these things we are trying to making it to get the outcome of it, right? So this is actually a neural network. Yes. Now what we need to look at the somewhat deeper. Of course, you can see there's a X, which this is the weight vector, and this is the input vector. You can have a multiplication of these 2 vectors. So using some activation function, finally we'll get the output Y. Okay. So while we have this one, this is called a simple one. We call a neuron or a perceptron. Now this is an example of it, having some kind of input, and then we can get which magazine the user is interested. A customer with these profiles like age, house, car, and area, on which kind of a magazine he may prefer to buy. So this is the hidden layers. Now, one of the things which we need to understand is, and even the neural network, suppose this is like a simple neural network, right, which we have seen just now. And when a neural network can solve many of the things, then we can say it is coming like a high accuracy, right? But still, this neural network may not be sufficient for each and every problem. Maybe when you look at this one, hidden node, this is nothing but H1 is nothing but a combination of X1, X2, X3. A particular combination, right? A particular combination of X1, X2, X3, Xn. H2 is also same. It's a combination, but it is a different combination. H3 is a different combination. Why we need to have this kind of different combinations? Because each one is taking some essence of it. From the input data, it is taking some essence of it, right? That means here, I am taking like 3 different aspects. And finally, I combine this one. But suppose if I want to increase the more accuracy more, that means maybe something was missing in handling this one. Maybe I will go to for one more layer here. I can write like this. I can have this one and connect to this one. That means I'm getting some of the combinations from this one, which is coming from here, or some of the combination from here, some of the combination from here, I'm taking this one node. So now just try to understand. These are the features, F1, F2, X1, X2, means this is like these are the features. From these features, I'm trying to getting some information at this one here, combination information, which may not be possible to extract learn fully. So I'm going for another layer. Maybe I can go for more layers. Either I can go the more number of nodes, hidden nodes, or more number of layers. So whenever you are having a more than one layer in the neural network, we call it as a deep neural network. Now you can see this is called a a deep neural network. So you can have a multiple hidden layers to introduce, to understand the complexity involved into this one. That means here you can see this is having a something, and from all the things again it is coming this one. Correct? These are all the things this node is coming. From all the things this node is coming. That means if suppose something was missed out by humans, which may not be able to make which part of this one can be learned more perfect, but because of this combination, somewhere having these combinations, we are able to extract the complex relationships in this one. That's what this is. Networks are complex. That means it's able to handle the complexity, the complex relationships that exist in the data that can be exploited by more number of layers. That's what the people call more number of hierarchical layers, multiple levels of hierarchical layers they will call. This is called a deeper neural network. From here, there are many variations are there on this deep learning aspects. Any questions here?
Sir, in the last slide, last two slides, I have seen some weights. So how these weights are actually assigned? Yes, this weight, W11, W12.
Yeah. So that's what actually the learning aspect will be coming to picture. For a given data, the data means what? I'm having this is x1, x2, x3, xn, and then I'm also having this y. Y is also will be there. Y is the output. This is called a class label. Okay. So now for each and every record, this is training data. I'm giving to this model. From this model, I'm generating these weights W11, W2, W3, W3. And there's like a back propagation algorithm. There's so many algorithms are there. Okay, back propagation algorithm like this. Maybe to understand very simply, suppose I given this data x1, x2, x3. Okay, so now I have some y I got some y I got it, right? So this is also I'm having y. I given the information. When I give the second record, I'm having y, but maybe I may be looking, there may be error is there in the y, because my y here, the output is here is different from what I got it here. Then what I have to do, I will say try to adjust these weights. Initially you can say randomly start, like I say 1, 1, 1. All the weights should be 1, 1. You got it? What I'm saying is initially you can start with maybe a random number, like I can say just for simplicity I take 1. All the weights are 1. I given this input, this one. When I give the input, what will happen? Y is giving some value, y I got it, right? Now this y I know this. What is this y? Assume that one is like a usually we can go binary classification 0 and 1, like a positive sentiment, negative sentiment, suppose. So this is like this first record is a positive sentiment, but the system is giving like a negative sentiment for me. Then what I can say? No, there I need to adjust these weights. That is back propagation. We go. That's called back propagation algorithm. I try to adjust these weights so that till it comes to the positive. Now I go to the second record. I'll give the second record and doing it. So like that I will do the several iterations of this to adjust these weights, and finally for this entire training data, it will try to model perfectly. Of course, we cannot say 100%, but at least the maximum percentage that it will take.
Okay, sir.
So, but these algorithms are there. You can say back propagation algorithm. Then there is some self-organizing maps. There are many of the algorithms were there. Gradient descent algorithm. All the things are part of this neural network algorithms. But I am taking a more simpler way of understanding this neural network. Okay.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah, please.
So, sir, if there is ELM and weighted ELM, so if I want to go for weighted ELM, then what exact unit I need to add?
Your voice is coming. Can you please repeat?
If I want to apply, means exactly I want to know what is the effect difference between ELM and weighted ELM. There are two terms, now. Extreme learning machine.
Oh, okay. You're asking. See, there are all variations to this one. How best that we can complex doing it. Okay.
So,
So-
if I want to go for weighted ELM, I got the code for ELM. So, if I want to go for weighted ELM, then what extra things that I need to add?
See, the thing is, you of course, let us not go into depth of the algorithm, but you can say at the high level what you need to do. You got some output. Okay. You got a actual output was known. In the training data, always we know the actual data, correct? So the difference between this one, the yi minus yi cap, the difference, the estimated and the predicted, is the error, correct?
Yes, sir.
So we are trying to minimize that error. So for that minimization, we are doing a lot of optimization procedures. Our idea is, I have a y1, y2, y3, y4, yn, and I predicted a value here. I want to reduce this error, correct? That means yi minus yi cap, suppose, trying to reducing all the errors. For that, we are trying to do some kind of a optimization function. So can I use this optimization function? Maybe people can use different kind of optimization functions, right? So extreme learning machines will also have some kind of approach to find these weights. Now what will happen if you want to adjust these weights, correct? That means what you want to do, you have to perturb these weights, correct? You want to change the weights. So obviously you need to take whether are you getting this error, you're considering it. Suppose if you change your weight, it can be your error is increasing or decreasing. Normally our idea is to decrease the error rate. Correct? So, correct? So that's what the adjustment will happen. So now, of course, today we have all libraries available with us, correct? So like you say Python, or maybe take R programming and everything, we have all these libraries available with us, and they do automatically those the aspects. But for conceptually, what we need to understand is what exactly these weights are contributing it. And neural networks are black boxes. Please remember that. If you ask anyone what this W1 means, okay, that's what I think previous question also you are also asking something. Right? What is W1? Interpreting this W11 is not possible. That's why these are called black box models. But you can change the algorithms and everything in between that you can do whatever the things you are making it. At the end, you want to improve the accuracy. But suppose you got a 80% accuracy, now you want to improve further. Correct? So you are using some additional mechanisms on top of it. But the goal is to minimize the error rate in the prediction. And these weights were, though we are the model, from the given training data it is learned, but it cannot be interpretable. Interpretable means we do not know why I received this is like for this record I got a positive. You cannot explain that one why it comes a positive. We just giving the data, and the algorithm does all these iterations, a lot of iterations, and finally it predicts. The same thing if you go to the extreme learning machines. They're very popular because they're trying to go for the local convergence and global convergence, right? They converge faster. The convergence of these machines are very faster. Because what will happen here sometimes, you made this one, but you never come to the saying that, okay, almost all like 90 samples are there, all 90 samples are correctly predicted. So what will happen? In the first one, you are changing the weights. For second one, you are again changing weights, right? Third one, you are changing weights. By the time third you are changing weights, the first one is not properly predicting it now. Then what to do? Because always you are going here and there, you're going, but never to going for a convergence, right? So that means you need to come out with a new mechanism to add to that. So that's why we are having a lot of variations to this one. Even the weighted eliminations are the same thing. Because that means something, a guided approach we are making to give this initial weights. Is it clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Any other questions? So now, here you can see. The point is, once we have the data here, input, you are getting the output. Right? Normally, what will happen in the NLP kind of a task, or even you can see in the smartphone when you want to type some message, always you will get a next word. That's the 3 options you will be available, which you can choose. Right? So how you can predict the next word in the sequence based on the previous word? Right? Now you are saying you typed some 3 words. Now you are looking for the 4th word you are typing. Then you are having the 3 options. Either you can choose one of these or maybe type it. Correct? That's what we usually do in the smartphone. So the next word which you are going to type is based on this previous words, or it come automatically. Maybe it may be based on the previous words, right? That's what the context means. That I mean by context. So now here in this normal neural network, what is happening? You are giving the input and you are giving output. Suppose the first word is given, so it will say what is the next word. But it never goes to the, like at T1 you given the word, and at T2 you given the word, T3 you given the word, but only it will always talks about this next word, but it will not take the based on this context, because you can give input, you will get the output. But if you want to keep that knowledge also, that previous knowledge also, what to be done? Maybe I need to keep that knowledge, I have to store that knowledge also here. Right? That means I need to say, okay, let me have, this is like a deep neural network, DNN. I have multiple DNNs. And the output of one will give to the another one. Output of one give to another one, output give to another. Now what I'm saying here, I say T1, T2, T3, T4. Now when I come to T2, I'm taking the knowledge of this one and also this T2, right? And when I go to T3, I have the knowledge of, I'm giving the input to T3 and also taking knowledge from the T2 also. When I say T2 is also taken from T1. Right? That means if I look at T3, I have a knowledge of T1, T2. Then again, same thing going on. So if we have this deep NN having with loops, we call it as a recurrent neural networks. So suppose this is nothing but a DNN. You can give this input xt. That is x is a vector, right? X is a vector. So xt at the time t you are giving, and you are getting the output as a hidden node output, hidden neurons, right? The output as a ht. That means this recurrent neural networks work by taking into previous state of the network into cognizance to predict the next word. That means you can predict the sequence of the values. Each one is a word, sequence of the words that you can make it, so that you can have the taking data from the previous input to the next output. So how this DeepNN will be different from the RNNs? Because this RNNs taking the temporal aspect. Because when I say this is the word, this is the word, this is the word, these are all word, right? So I'm taking at time intervals. That means the temporal meaning is also be taken into account. The temporal aspect is part of the RNN, which is not there in our DeepNN. So that means each word in an input sequence will be associated with a specific time step. So of course, if you take the number of words, is nothing but the number of time steps that you required. That is called a sequence length. So now how we can compute this one? Maybe let me go to here. So now if you see this DeepNN is nothing but you are having this x1, x2, xn, xt. So the previous input is coming here. You can say like this, or you can be output of like this, because this is output, right? Output you are making like this. Now what is required? Suppose if you are at the t place, suppose you can say there is a xt at the 3rd place. This is input. Now you want to find this ht, right? So when I say ht, I am looking for ht. This is based on this xt input, and also input coming from the previous states, correct? This is previous states are coming. Previous states means this is like a ht minus 1. So I have the ht minus 1. So now the current output is a combination of these three. The combination of the current one plus coming from the previous states. I can say, when I say combination, it could be something like a weighted combination. Okay? It could be a weighted combination. That means if I want to find this ht, the hidden state vector of the current state, ht, I have to take the xt and I'm taking the ht minus 1, the weighted, some weight to the xt, some weight to the previous knowledge, the previous one, having some kind of a function. You can apply some function on these things. Usually call it sigmoid function. Sigma is a sigmoid function. Or it could be like a tan hyperbola or some other function. You can use it. But normally people are using sigma. For general networks, we are using. But here, what is this ht minus 1? Ht minus 1 is from the previous state. When I say previous state, it also includes the previous to previous state, all the things, right? That means this is nothing but a recurrent weight matrix coming from the future steps, previous steps. So if you can understand this equation, so then it is very easy to understand any kind of this deep learning algorithms. It's only just a combination of these things, right? And this is some kind of a weightage again. It's not like a w to the power of h. It's a symbol. It is a symbol. Like a xt is a symbol. ht minus is a symbol. Okay, it should not be treated as a w to the power of h. No, it's like a wh is a weight associated with the previous steps. So that means for each and every time step, there is a hidden state vector ht. How this ht is coming? It encapsulates and summarize all of the information that was seen in the previous time steps. From previous time steps, what I was seeing. So that's why we can say hidden state is a function of both the current word vector and the hidden state vector of the previous time step. So this is current word vector and this is the hidden state previous vector. And this is nothing but some kind of a activation function that you are applying on this data. So now if you can understand this one, the rest of the steps are very straightforward. So now we can see this Rn can be treated as a sequence of DNNs, and it can be useful for many applications, this one, because now once I say RNN, now you can see this is a normal neural network is you have one input and one output, 1 to 1. When it comes to there's a possible to 1 to many. That means you can give the image captioning. That is the image captioning is the application. So you give a single image and it will try to give the words that are representing this image. That is 1 to many. Then many to 1 is also possible, like a text classification. You give the multiple statements, so it can get the whether it is which class the text belongs to. You can give multiple words. You can which belongs to that one will tell. Or simply you can say give a text, a paragraph, and it will give the sentiment, yes or no. And machine translation. You give the sentence in one language, and you can get the sentence in another language. Like you give the English language, you can translate into the French. Or of course, many to many is also possible, like the POS tagging kind of applications. So this is RNNs are having a variety of applications you can solve using these RNNs. So now, once I have these RNNs, another important aspect is always we are saying I can get the knowledge from the previous. Right? I'm getting the knowledge from previous. When you say this is like some way combination of the weights is there, that means you are not getting everything. If you say assume that one, say 0.3 into this one, that means only 30% of that only you are getting it, correct? There is some weightage you are giving to one. Now, see, when you're taking this knowledge from the previous one, how far that you can take? Suppose you're taking from here to here. So now this word is having here, okay, now this is okay, but now whatever the previous ones also you want to get. So that is actually, can we say, is it like a dependencies can be taken as a short, or is it can handle long term also? Normally what will happen, if you're going on taking this knowledge, somewhere you may be losing the old ones, right? Even the how much WH you may be taking, but while going to the next states, maybe in the previous 1 or 2 you may be having more, but not the far from that particular word. Suppose you can say here the clouds are in the sky. The sky is related to what? Cloud, correct? But you can see here, I grew up in France, so much I speak fluent French. Is this French corresponds to the speaking, or it could be into the France? Because if I want to go to more and more, I should have this long-term dependencies. Can I capture that long-term dependencies or not? Okay. So now to incorporate this long-term dependencies, people are started about working the LSTM, long short-term memory. That means, can you say that one, okay, I'm going from here, taking this step and also taking this step. This is what we am doing, right? I said this is a cell. And then something I'm going, leaving to the next unit. Now, can I control these things? Suppose this is the input I'm getting. You know, I have to take entire input, but I have to take what input I need to take. This is the input. This is the output. Okay. So I'm getting knowledge from the previous steps. Do I need to all the data, or can I knowledge, or can I forget something? Because usually human beings also try to forget something, right? Because if the unnecessary things don't require to keep it. So something you can forget, something only you allow. So this LSTM actually builds controls this information. When you say controlling means, they may be making the gates. They call it a gate. So you can call input gate, forget gate, and output gate. That means forget gate, what it says, how much only you can give it to this one. From the previous knowledge, how much you want to be allowed to this one, and how much you can forget, how much you can allow. Input gate means you are taking this input, which are the things that you want to operate on this one. Okay, once you learn this one, this HT, how much you want to give to, you can decide how much you want to give. Of course, next one again say whether you have to take everything or not. That is again the next cell. Right? This is what the LSTM does. Now LSTM is having a blocks, choose to retain their memory over an arbitrary period of time and also forget if necessary. So this actually overcomes this long-term dependency problem. Of course, if you want to go deep into the RNNs, there is a vanishing gradient problem, exploiting gradient problems are there. So yeah, of course, the time is not that much, so we're not going to that details. But this is the thing. Now, that means if I have a states, I can have this, each one is like itself is a RNN, assume these are like RNNs. So we have multiple gates incorporated into this one to process. That means we are actually, the several RNNs are repeating, right? This is the RNN, this is RNN. So how much information that we can provide it. So the basic idea is, each cell state, we want to see how much we can take from input and how much we can send to the output. So this is what CT minus 1 means. This CT is the current cell. So how much you are giving the output of this one. CT minus 1 is coming from previous. This XT is the current one. The horizontal line running through the top of the diagram, you can see this is cell state is giving from CT minus 1 to CT. What is the state that it is coming up? Now what will happen? Normally we call it as a gates. So for anything you can control it using the gates. could be gate, could be like you can use a sigmoid function or tanh function, but it's LSTM actually talks about 3 gates, mainly to protect and control the state of the cell. This is a high level view of the one where you have a input gate, forget gate, and the output gate. That means how much you want to be take from the previous state to the current one is the forget gate. How much newly computed state for the current input you want to allow is input gate, and how much you want to give to the next unit is the output gate. Now these steps are very simple to understand. If you look in the step 1, suppose you can say forget gate. This FT is nothing but a forget gate. Now, what is forget gate? Forget gate coming from this one. How you are deciding this one? Based on this XT only, correct? Based on the current input. So it is a function of HT minus 1 and XT. Correct? And of course, some weight, you are having some weight. This is the bias function, which biasness, whatever the biasness you are having, you can have. So FT is nothing but sigmoid of this one, the activation function of these things. Suppose if it is like a 1, that means you are completely keeping it. 0 means you don't want anything. Suppose you want to close the door completely, nothing will be allowed. But open fully, everything can be allowed. Or you can control something in between 0 and 1. So that means the decision made by the forget gate looks like HT minus 1 and XT, and the outputs a number between 0 and 1 for each number in the cell state CT minus 1. Right? This is the one. Now the same thing you can see the step 2. Decide what new information is going to store in the cell state. New information coming from the new state. Right? So now you can have the IT. So these are 2 components here. One is the IT and another is the CT. So the input gates, the sigmoid layer or the input gate decides which value to update. So what it says, same thing, HT minus 1 XT, but because this is like input gate, we are having the I symbol. Previously you can see this is the forget gate, we are having the F symbol, but now we are having the I symbol. Okay, so then this tanh layer, there are 2 layers. One is the sigmoid layer and this is the tanh layer. Sigmoid layer then decides which value to update. The tanh layer creates a vector of new candidate values that could be added to the state. So that is a tanh which are coming from this from the current state to from the current state information, how much you are adding it. But this is same, correct? This is HT minus 1 XT. You can see things. Now you can combine these 2 to make the updated state. Now update the old state CT minus 1 into the new state CT is based on the previous ones. One is the forget gate and the input gate. These are 2, correct? This is allowing these 2. So how much you are taking this forget gate, from how much you are getting it from the current state. Now finally, you have third gate, output gate, correct? What is you want to leave it to the next one, that is HD, which way you want to go into this one. So the output gate again HT minus 1 XT. You have WO and BO here, same thing. Now that HT is nothing but O of T into tan hyperbola of the CT. So usually tan H we use because we want to get from -1 to +1. Sigma means 0 to 1. Correct? This is goes there -1 to +1. So this is about the LSTM machines enhancements to the RNNs. There are a lot of variations are there in the LSTM also, because why always we are saying only here you can see sometimes I'm having these 3 gates. People will say, can I have a more number of gates? It's possible to have more gates also, or you can have less number of gates also. So that means the combinations of that, a lot of variants to the SLTM came. One of the frequently is the GRU. This GRU, gated recurrent units, they actually combine these 2 gates into 1 gate, like updated gate. The forget gate and input gate, actually they combine into a single unit, updated gate. and they have their own again the same similar formulas you can have for that. So like that you can have a multiple variants there started. And one of the famous user is BiLSTM, that is called bidirectional LSTM. Now what you are saying is, now okay, I'm getting this one knowledge, but I'm always looking at this word from the previous one, correct? But what about the next future? I'm not thinking about anything about the future, correct? But of course, this is the next word prediction. This is okay. But suppose if I want to do the machine translation, I maybe require the next word what's supposed to be there, correct? Because the kind of a grammar which you use in English may not be different from the grammar for French, correct? So now, is it possible to can I traverse like this or backwards also? One is forward and this is backward. If you have these both the things, they call it as a bidirectional LSTM. And because these are the sequence models, it will happen first in one direction, then it will come to the next direction, another direction. This is called a bidirectional LSTM. So very good in the Q&A kind of examples. So now, what is happening is, about this is GRUs, everything, just skipping it. Now people are calling it like there's a encoder and decoder systems. Because they say, okay, I'm having this feed forward neural network kind of things. Can I give input to the encoder and get I can decode for output? Like usually people are good in the encryption, decryption kind of things, right? So now what happens is, particularly in the kind of a machine translation, maybe let me go to this machine translation example. So if I have a English statement and here I am going in the French, I am translating it. So I can use some encoder. Encoder is nothing but again this one, either the neural network plus some additional mechanisms you are having. So you making this one into the common representation, and from common representation to the decoding into the that one. This common representation is nothing but a context vector. So that means you are trying to identify the context of this one. So it could be, this encoders could be LSTM or GRU, or it could be anything also, whatever the deep learning models that you are looking for, it can be part of that. So this is sequence to sequence encoder decoder models. So it's not that if you are doing, what will happen? You can do directly also, right? If you do directly one-to-one, you may not achieve it. Because you want to know previous, you want to know next, something you have to do the intermediate representation. From the intermediate representation, you can come to the next one. Tomorrow, suppose if you want to from English to German, then you don't require to do again to develop these things. You can say from here itself, you can develop the German, correct? Because you can say common representation and can go for that. So this is like a context vector. It passes to the decoder, which returns a sequence with a high likelihood. Now what we are doing is, it's not like a directly conversion, one-to-one conversion. Because for each and every word, it will try to find what could be the possible words there. Out of that, you get trying to make in the which is the highly likelihood, because you may be computing some kind of a probability. So the P1, P2, P3, associated with the each and every word, and take the top one could be the best choice. So this is sequence to sequence models, encoder and decoder models. These encoder decoder models actually further moved into the transformers. So this is actually currently people are using this technology. Everything is based on the transformers only. The important aspect is the, suppose one of the thing which we just now we discussed it. Suppose if I have a states like this, right? So I can go like this, or I can come like this, correct? Now, whenever there's a dependency was there, because it is going in sequence, I have to wait till it completes first one and coming to second one, or maybe coming to second one, first complete second one, come to the first one, correct? Is it possible to compute all possible combinations? That means these two I will take, these two I will take, these two I will take, these two, because I'm suppose now at this stage, okay? I'm taking all this one. Suppose now I take all possible combinations. All possible combinations I will take, I will execute it. So while doing this one, all possible combinations if I are taking, I don't require to worry about this sequence aspect. Correct? because I'm doing all possible combinations, or I'm considering it. That means there's a possibility to have a parallelization of that. But of course, it is take more complex things, right? You require more computational power. But if you have a high-end systems, you can do the parallelization, because doing this, all of this, you require higher things. But there's a parallelization was there, so you can compute faster. So that means transformers allows much more parallelization than RNNs, and therefore reducing the training times. So this is where the transformers are coming to the picture. So there are many variations out there, like Google has started with the GPT, GPT-3 and everything. So now there's called a BERT. People are using BERT, bidirectional encoding. So there are many of the transformers are into picture. Of course, that we call it a language models. This BERT is one of the bidirectional encoder representations from transformers. Just these are like a different things, like a GPT, Elmo, BERT. These are the transformer architectures. Whether how much I'm taking to both these sides, I'm taking into picture, or maybe always I'm going to the only forward direction here, or I may be going differently, both together, but in a different times, not together. This is together. This is a differently. The forward direction is separately, the backward direction separately, and combining at a higher layer. So each architecture will have a different kind of things. These are called a BERT architecture. So now, what is the basic principles of these transformers? Because when we have a huge amount of the data, and we are learning, because it's not possible to give the labels, right? Whenever we want to train the supervisor classification, we require the labels. And many times we don't have these labels, right? Because we are getting data. So can we go for a unsupervised or semi-supervised manner? That means I have a few data sets, I may have the labeled one, but from that one I go for a more on the unsupervised from those ones. So finally, unsupervised learning on large data yield discriminative features. And if you remember earlier when I say objectives of learning, can I discriminate each and every point separately or not? If you want to make it this one, you should know the feature, because every point is having F1 to Fn, correct? What is the discriminative feature for this particular one? So that's what people are trying to learn. So one is the pre-trained model, using the pre-trained models, and then fine-tune that model on a much smaller supervised data sets, so that you can perform the task, specific task, very quickly. Of course, each one is having its own advantage. GPT-3 now, actually the GPT-3 was there, recent one, GPT-3. The Google was actually given. Of course, most of the things are coming from the Google only. Okay. The BERT is, people are commonly using the BERT, and having BERT is also having a lot of variations, robot and everything. So, of course, which were not covered is like a CNN. CNN is also used for the, now whatever the LSTM, RNN, all they are good for the natural language NLP tasks. But for there's a called a CNN, convolution neural networks. They are mainly used for the image processing applications. So just let me go to the directly at CNN. Here also we are having multiple layers. The CNN we call like there's an input one, and there's a convolution layer, and there's a non-linear stage, and then there's a pooling layer. So that means, suppose this is the kind of image was there. This portion is now taking the 1 point in this next space. This could be the 1 point. This could be the space. Could be 1 point in this one, like this guy. Somehow this looks like a dimensional reduction. You say here each pixel is like a dimension, then you are reducing it, correct? So what will happen is, suppose you can see with having a multiple convolution and pooling layers. Okay, you're trying to making these objects. You're just giving the image, and you can say whether this is a boat or a bird or cat or dog. So these are the 4 objects that you learned. Suppose now you can see output. So 0.94 is the boat. So these are the actually classifying as a boat. This means you can see this is entire, all the pixels could be like here. This particular portion will be here. So there's a way. So normally we call this is a CNN is building blocks are 4 layers. One is the input layer. So it takes an input and processes a spatial structure. Then we have a convolution operator, convolution layer. Here we're trying to identify the feature maps. We are extracting the feature maps. The ReLU layer actually talks about the non-linearity, handle the non-linearities. So just to make the negative pixels into 0. Then finally we have a pooling layer. This pooling layer is also useful to what are the feature maps you are trying to making here. You can be reduced further. That's why rectified feature maps. Here, this is the convolution operation. So here you can see there's a kernel is helpful to convert this 3 by 3 into only one feature. So you are converting into input image to a feature map. This is like a hidden neuron, right? This kernel could be anything. Like it could be a 3 by 3 matrix was you can apply on this kernel. Simply here you can see you can move this one to the next one to get the next point. Right? So you can convert everything into the feature map. Normally here you can see for each and every 3 by 3 is become to one value here. Right? So now here the kernel is like a 101, 010, and 101. This is the kernel. So you apply on this one. So you're taking this one and this one, and this one and this one. You add these things. Right? Because this will be 0 means it will be multiplied when it will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So you got the 4. In this case, you can say this is 1. This will go. This is 1, 2. This will be almost 0, 3. This is 1, 4. So you got the 4. Right? So this is like a convoluted feature, and this is the given image, and we given the convoluted feature. Pooling is actually we go for either max pool or min pool. Suppose if you have this like a 1, I will take the maximum of these 4 here. In the minimum pooling, minimum of these things, maybe it could be 1. So some people will go for average pooling, and many variations also there. This is very required is because normally when we say go for machine learning models, we go for we lead to sometimes overfitting. To avoid that overfitting, so we used to take this pooling layer. So this is about the one. Maybe I will stop here. So any questions are there? I can take some questions. Because there are many of the deep learning was applications are there. One is we did with the how we can satisfy the large dissatisfied customers in the banking domain. That is based on the emotion discovery. And then we went for the another application with the image captioning. Can we these emotions will be helpful as in the image captioning side. That's what we did some work in the image captioning side. And then we did the conversations. Suppose if you're having multimodal conversations, can we take the cross-modal multi-attention? This is what we propose: cross-modal multi-attention for long multimodal conversations. So this is what particularly with the fashion domain, we did the example with the fashion domain. And another one is we did work with the audio, like Indian language identifications, the speech. There's leveraging latent representations of speech for Indian language identification. This is one of the work which we did for as part of deep learning, because this is the variation autoencoders we used. So there are many of the works are there going on in this area. Okay, so yeah. So maybe I can take some questions, some few questions. Hello. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Any questions? I don't know whether people may be thinking like a deep learning is something, so I maybe confused them. I don't know. So any questions are there I can take. If there are no questions, yeah, please. Any questions?
Good afternoon, sir.
Yeah, please.
Very interesting topic, deep learning and its application. Can you just give one or two business applications, particularly related to marketing decision making, how this deep learning can be used? What are the areas related to marketing management where this deep learning can be used.
Yeah, well, actually, if you the first example which I took, can I identify the dissatisfied customers?
Dissatisfied, yeah.
Dissatisfied
That's
customers.
good.
So
Yes.
the banking, suppose if you look at, I get a lot of calls. Banks will get a lot of calls,
Okay.
and always sometimes you may be seeing that one. We record your conversation for quality purpose. They will tell, correct? Because whenever some call center call comes to you, and they say we'll record your call for the quality check purpose.
So
right?
you
That's
mean
what-
to, yes, sir. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
so that's what will happen is they try to log the call. The call log means they try to store that conversation and
Right,
keep
sir.
into this one. So what will happen? Quality check means what? Whether the customer is having the satisfied or not satisfied. The product manager, what will do? He will try to randomly pick some of those calls and check whether they are actually satisfied with customers or dissatisfied customers.
So this can help us to maintain a good customer relationship management as well.
Yeah.
Better we understand
Yes,
the emotion
yes.
of customer.
Emotion
we
of
can
the
have-
customer. Yeah,
yeah.
we can
Better
get
we
the
can, yes. Better
Yeah,
we
so-
can have, better strategy for CRM, customer relationship management.
customer. You can find out, because if suppose normally what will happen if a customer is not satisfied, he may move to his competitor.
Exactly.
Right? He may move to his competitor. So now one has to identify the how much whether the customer conversation is actually satisfied customer, dissatisfied customer. But suppose if I have 1,000 conversations out there, and
Right.
maybe 1,000 conversations cannot be picked by the manager, because he only
Right.
randomly picks 3 or 5 or maybe 8 based on his time. So when he picked up, all are coming as a conversations are like a satisfied customers. So then he may feel, okay, his bank is doing good. But
Yes.
that is not the thing. Is it possible? Can I have suppose I have all conversations? Can I give a subset of these conversations where they are potentially dissatisfied? Then the manager can look into this one and then say whether they're satisfied, really satisfied or not, and can look into those only, because his time can be better utilized. So how to identify these things? So what we did is we have taken this both the textual one, because we can convert the audio into text, the
Yeah,
text
right.
sentiment analysis, and emotion from the speech we have taken and try to identify. And in this case, you can see, so the simple case is as a 40. Normally, if I look at the emotion, because people are saying that okay, they are happy, right?
Sir.
But what happens when I only looking at the conversation, because I do not know what happened in the conversation between the actual user and then the customer care center. I am a manager, right? Now what will happen? This is actually giving a 14. These all 14 will be happy people. But out of the 14, you can see these are 6 people are actually using the very hard words. That means they are not satisfied with your work, because though they may be speaking very nicely,
Right, sir.
so but they are not satisfied. So that means these are the things are possible, and our model is mostly this deep learning model which you are having, the deep reinforcement learning. We have done this work.
And accordingly, the companies can they can have the customer retention strategies after
Yes.
getting the information,
Yes.
hidden information from the customer. Accordingly, the companies can have their own retention strategy.
Yes, because once they're not dissatisfied, then they can do some kind of strategies. Maybe many of the people are giving complaints on this interest rate. So what to do? Maybe they say conversion rate, maybe some are coming. Something maybe services, customer services, maybe improve the responses may be faster. So taking a lot of time. So maybe these are complaints will be there. They can take some strategies. They can develop it as from business point of view.
Right, sir.
So this is one of the application we did for the banking sector.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Sir, one more request.
Yeah, please.
Could you please share the slides so that we can go through it in details? Because during the session, we could not make a note of everything, whatever we discussed.
Yeah, some of the things which are the technology things I can share, but some of these
Yeah,
banking
yeah, of
things
course,
they
of
are
course.
there.
Yeah.
Otherwise I can
Yeah.
share.
Kindly, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
So, if there are no more questions, then thanks to all of you for patiently listening last 1.5 hours.
Thank you so much, sir. Wonderful session, sir.
Thanks a lot.
Very good session. Thank you so much.
Okay, is there any other queries? Then you can go ahead. Else we'll stop here.
Sir, may we get this PPT today?
Yes, madam. Sir has already informed few of the technical things; those will be omitted, and he will be sharing whatever things it can be shared. He will be sharing.
Okay.
Right, sir. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Sir,
Thanks to the
thank
professor,
you.
which is giving me time for.
No,
For
sir.
this
We are
wonderful
fortunate.
yeah.
We are fortunate that you have given your kind accord to have association with us, and whenever we need you, you always make yourself available for us.
Yeah, sure,
So,
thanks.
sir, on behalf of our department and entire staff, I once again thank you for kindly accepting our invitation, and we look forward to get associated with you in future as well.
Okay, thanks. Thank you
Uh,
very much. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants. You can
Thank you,
sign
sir.
out now, and please join for the today's third session at 3 p.m. so that we can start the session at 3:15 sharp.
Right, sir.
So today's third session, we have Dr. Nikhil Mariwala of Kurukshetra University. He will be doing certain hands-on session. So please do join with your laptop or desktop with internet connectivity, and that will be much more convenient. So
Okay, sir.
look forward to see you soon. Please join for the third session at 3 p.m. Thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.